Loreley, you are an author.
I guess I am now. Yeah.
Yes, yes. You guys, not you guys, you, um, just authored a book within a collection, a collaborative, and yours was called um, uh, um, Winkle, Rita Van Winkle. What was it?
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, and you're right. There were you can say you guys, you gals, whatever.
Gals.
There were five of us that worked on this. And yes, mine is called Rita Van Winkle, which is a spin on Rip Van Winkle.
Yeah. Well, before we get into your actual story and things like that, I want to know, is this your first story or your first book that you authored?
It's the first one that I've published. Yeah, I've been working on a few other stories, one in particular that just was getting just kind of stuck. And I'm going to bring that out shortly and dust it off and keep working on it. I'm not giving up yet on that one, but
So
yeah.
it is true about writer's block then.
Yeah, and I think during this COVID, we were all kind of struggling, which then one of the gals, Bernice, who kind of uh, headed up this project, came up with the idea of collaborating together. And that really kind of got the wheels turning, and we really helped each other and got things kind of revived.
Yeah, as far as this collaborative effort, each one of you, five ladies, you each
Mhm.
had a different story. So did you kind of help each other out? If you got to the point where you're going, gosh, I don't know where to take this character or where to take the story, did you reach out as a group or something like that and say,
Absolutely. So the the way we came together is we were already in a writing group together, we call it a critique group, and we were all working on different things, and we would meet once a month to share our work and then provide feedback to each other. And so we'd already been doing that on our individual stories over the last year. So while we were working on these particular stories, I think we met about every 2 weeks because we were on a fast, hard deadline. So we kind of picked up the pace. And so each week we would get together, virtually, share our stories and provide feedback and ask questions like, yeah, I'm stuck on, I don't know what to do with this person at this point, or um, here are 3 ways I'm thinking of going here, and then we'd all just share in and
hmm,
help each other. Yeah.
um, was it, did it lead your story to a totally different place when you do something like that? Is it it's to a point where you're going, well, my character, my mind was going this way, but then the outside influences or ideas, the collaborative effort totally changed the storyline? Did that happen or?
You know, it it didn't really happen for me as far as changing um, the ultimate ending. And I think maybe one other author, her ending kind of switched a little bit. But for the most part, I think we were pretty solid on where we were going in our stories. So there weren't any major changes based on feedback, but subtle subtle changes. Yeah.
So then that leads me to ask, how do you write a story? Do you start with the ending, or do you start with the opening, or do you start somewhere in the middle and then figure out how the story is going to end and how it's going to start? How did you write your story?
Yeah, it could be any number of those things. So for me, I knew I wanted to do Rip Van Winkle. I was pretty sure I wanted to do that, so I kind of played around with some ideas, and I wanted it to be, she goes into the future and things have changed. Well, in the original Rip Van Winkle, he only goes 20 years in the future because he's already an adult, right? But this kid is my character is a kid, and so it had to go 70 years in order to make her really old. So then I had to really think about my futuristic stuff. So that's the area where I really had to work on. But I did know that I wanted her to fall asleep, wake up in the future, and then I wanted it to be a little bit ambiguous. Does she make it back to the past, or does she stay in the future? So it's sort of an ending where the reader has to think about it and kind of decide.
So I hear with musicians, you write what you're familiar with or what you've experienced or gone through. So are you a dreamer? Do you want to figure out what or find out what the future is? Is there a little kid in you that wants to know what's out in the future?
Yeah, I am a dreamer for sure. And you're right. Like musicians, for me, it's easier to write what I know. I know a lot of writers; they do a ton of research and they, do write a whole lot of historical fiction and have to really dig into stuff to learn it. I'm more of like a personal experience type writer. And so I write what I know. So, but I also like to live in the moment. So yeah, but I love the idea of time travel. I think it's just very intriguing. If I were going to go in the future, what would it be like? That kind of thing.
Is there a little struggle in you? Do I want to be in the here and now or just
yeah.
So
Definitely.
you've got to be a traveler too, then, because you're talking about time travel. You're talking about going into the future. Sounds like exploring different avenues of what's life or what's out there. So you must be a traveler of sorts.
Yeah, I'm definitely a traveler. This year is killing me because I can't go anywhere. When I first came up with this idea for Rip Van Winkle, I had been living in Europe for about 3.5 years, traveling around and teaching English. And even though it was only 3.5 years, when I came back to the States, this was between the years of 2003 to 2006-ish.
Mm-hmm.
I left in 2002, came back in 2000, whatever. So it's about 3.5 years. But I came back and everything was different here, weirdly different. Like there were Bluetooths and Blackberries and everyone's writing blogs and all this stuff that had developed in just that short amount of time. I felt like I was gone for 20 years. And the Bon Marché was no longer around. It was now Macy's. It was just like, everywhere I turned, it just seemed so bizarre. So that's kind of what was the inspiration for writing this story. But yes, you travel. Definitely, I'm a traveler.
So you said it was kind of an inspiration to write this story. So has this story, because we're in 2020 now, towards the end of 2020, has this story really been in your head for years and you just wanted to find a way to get it out?
Yeah, I think so. When I came back from Europe and, we learned about blogs and I thought, I'm going to do that. So I was writing blogs about a little bit about my travels, but mostly just, silly daily antics, whatever. But I did think about this particular experience and I never really got it down on paper. And so then when this opportunity came up, I thought, I'm going to do Rip Van Winkle because I really felt like I was Rip Van Winkle and I want to recreate that a little bit.
So back stepping a little bit. So like I said, this opportunity came up and you said that you were already in a group and it wasn't a collaborative book writing, a story writing group, right? It was,
right.
Did you write short stories or did you just write things and it was more of a literary group where you might have discussed certain things?
Yeah, our group is Specifically, we were all working on children's
Oh,
picture book writing. So that was our focus. We met through the Society of Children's Book Writers and Illustrators is how we came together originally. And so we were all working on children's stories already, different, very different, each of us, different stories.
mm-hmm.
So, yeah.
Well, you just had a virtual launch, correct? And like a
We
Q&A
did.
session type of situation. Was
Mhm.
that pretty successful? How'd that go?
It went really well, actually. I think all of us were a little nervous because this is not our forte. And
Mm-hmm.
then once you create something like this, it's like you put yourself out there and you're not really sure how it's going to be received. And you're excited about it, but you're also kind of nervous. And but yeah, it was very successful. I think it helped to have that there are 5 of us. So we have 5 different perspectives and 5 different people from all different areas of the Pacific Northwest, and so.
Do you recall any of the questions that were asked of the from the viewers? I mean, were they were they were they were they peers? Were they fellow writers, or were they people that were interested in a children's or young person's book? Or how did they find out about this virtual launch? And
The launch, yeah. I think in general, launches, ideally they'd be like in a little bookstore in your neighborhood, and it's mostly for friends and families and community to come together, and you just, you know, uh, celebrate the completion of your book. So
Mhm.
this was a lot different because it was virtual. And so really the way people found out was social media, word of mouth, telling our friends and family and extended people about it. But definitely we had people from across the country. So that was really
Oh,
cool. I know a lot of my family is back east. And so I told them, well, it's going to be a little late for you, but if you can stay up and watch. And they did. So it was
wow.
cool.
So there has not been or has there been like a pre-release? So were any of the callers privy to reading the stories prior to, or?
I don't think, I know that one of my friends had ordered the book from Amazon, and so she had it. She was probably like the first person that got it. She ordered it so fast, so there was about a week. So that not very long. I don't know how many other people actually read it.
So speaking of places to get it, Amazon is one place. Are there other
Yeah.
places that folks can order this? And
Hmm.
uh, it's no longer in a pre-order, right? It's
Right.
available right now. They can order it and they get it.
Yes. And they so Amazon, of course, and then IndieBound is another online source, or people can just go to their local favorite bookstore, which we really encourage,
Mhm.
just to keep the bookstores, the brick and mortar still in business. So they're happy to order anything that a customer wants usually.
Good. Yeah. And that's a good thing to point out is you don't have to purchase online from the big guy,
Hmm.
especially right now in this situation that we're going through. It'd be nice to be able to either call up your local bookstore,
Hmm.
or I don't know. We're back to whatever we are in right now. So can we even go wander around in a bookstore? But if you can, go there and ask for the book, and then definitely order online. And the compilation, the name of the compilation could be found under, um, what's the name of the entire compilation?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Is
It's,
it
yeah, The Girl Who Lived in the Shoe and Other Torn Up Tales. So,
there
and
it
then it does say
is?
compiled by Bernice Seward, and she was the master mind of this whole idea. So she has her name on the front.
But you are in there.
But I'm in there. Yeah, each of us has a title page, and then the title page will have the author's name before their story.
So the illustration, did you illustrate, or did you hire an illustrator, or
You know,
how did you do it personally?
well, I am not an artist. And so that was the most, I mean, writing this story is challenging, right? There's revisions after revisions and a lot of work goes into it. But I am not an illustrator. And so when Bernice had this idea that we were each going to do our own illustration,
Oh,
I think at least three of us would say that we were not illustrators, and we were all thinking, I don't know, and then she just kind of gave us a little tutorial, and it's a collage technique that they used. And so she taught us how to use it, how to do it. We dove in and we all created our own illustration.
really?
Yeah.
Would
So.
you mind holding up just one quick page, a picture of one of your illustrations that you did? We can
Yeah.
entice the viewers and the listeners. They could just picture it in their minds,
All
and then they can
right.
order it.
Yeah. All right. Here's my story opens with Rita, similar to Rip Van Winkle, storming out of the house, angry. And I don't know if you can't really now. I can see I have a glare from the sun coming in. But anyway,
I love the graphics. I do.
thanks. Thanks. It was really fun. That is the one area. One of the questions you were asking earlier, what were some of the questions viewers that came to the launch asked? And one of them was, how much time did it take to do the illustration? And I think for each of us, it's different, based on our artistic abilities and skills. But that is one area I wish there was more time. I wish there had been more time to work on it, because it was so new for me, and it was a lot of fun, and my entire office looked like a kindergarten classroom. I had paper and scissors and everything everywhere. And I made several revisions to my illustrations, but I would have liked just a little more time to play around and experiment with that medium. So, yeah.
So is the entire book for children, say K-3, or is it each story depends? It might be kindergartners or it might be second and third graders. Or how's that working? Since it's a compilation.
Actually, good question. Each story is the whole book as a whole is geared toward readers like 7 to 9ish, or grades 2 and 3, second and third graders, and we kind of had that target age. And part of the way that works is when you're writing something, you can put it into there are online tools. One is called Hemingway, and you put your story in that tool, and it will tell you what grade level you're written for. And then it will tell you if you have too many difficult words or too many difficult sentences, and then you can kind of make your revisions around that, so that you don't have a kindergarten or fifth grader, so that one age group can enjoy the whole book. Yeah.
Oh, that's actually kind of neat. It's very cool where you can actually take something that's today modern technology to help you write something that might be it's going back to an actual book, something physical for young children. So that in itself, I think, is really neat that you're using technology to do that. So that's cool.
Thank you. I know my niece, her daughter is in the second grade, and she's having a hard time finding actual books. She's trying to get her a little bit off the screen, although this is available as an ebook as well, if people want it. But yeah, so I think parents still want their kids to have physical books. And
I agree. I mean, especially in that second or third grade level where they can hold it and they can read it themselves and just experience that turning to the page, rather than having some sort of tablet and flicking just like a game. It's
Mm-hmm.
like a video game. It seems like something like that would just go in and right out. It's another game. Whereas that book, I can lay down, I can look at it, read it, but whatever. I could put a little dog ear in the corner and get yelled at for doing that. It's
Yes, yes. Uh, that's I feel the same way. I'm a book. I'm a
yeah.
book person.
I definitely would encourage parents out there to to find the book, to order the book, and maybe if they want to go both ways, buy the book, the physical book, and also buy the download. So
Yeah,
if they want to read to their children, the parents might find it easier to just do
yeah,
this.
right, right.
So
Yeah.
um, if you don't mind, I want to take it way, way back to when you were that second, third, fourth, sixth
Oh,
grader. Was this, were you a reader, an avid reader back then, or were you more of a dreamer?
um, well, that's a good question. Um, I I think that when I was very young, um, I was a reader, or when I was super young, I wanted to be read to, and my mom she went to the library. I think she would actually volunteer at the library once in a while. And she'd take me, and I just loved picking out all the books. And, you know, I loved being read to and having a lot of books. Then there was that period, and I think kids still experience this today. There's this period where there's more TV watching and there's more whatever other things I was doing, and I didn't read. I think, um, I want to say like maybe fourth and fifth grade, sixth grade. I wasn't a huge reader, and then I found my genre and my author, and then from then on I was a reader, and I read everything. I don't even have a particular uh, favorite genre. I just read everything. Um,
Wow. Well, I guess
so
that
that was
blows my question of what do you like to read most?
oh
All right, so I'm going to put this or that.
okay.
Romance or science fiction?
Oh, that's hard. Um,
Really?
yeah, those are so. I'm probably gonna say science fiction. Yeah,
Good for you, because the one of the science fiction books I'm reading right now, there is romance in it. I
yeah.
just
There
can't
you
see a
go.
romance book that has science fiction, that way around.
Yeah,
But there's always romance someplace. No matter
yeah,
what movie, no matter what book, there's
yeah.
some sort of romance.
That's true. That's absolutely true.
Yep.
There's always an element. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
Uh, Speaking of elements of a story, so do you have? You did say that there's something that you were working on that you're going to bring back out.
Mhm.
Do you use your daily experiences as these elements of part of your story or the next book that you're going to be writing? Is it going to be geared towards that second, third, or young person, or is it going to get a little bit older?
That is part of my struggle with the story that I'm working on. The first part of your question, yes, I definitely use my daily experiences to inspire. I either see something, or someone says something, or I have some kind of experience that makes me say, "Oh, I want to make a story about that." And then that's, sparks start flying around. Um, so this other story that I've been working on, it started out as I wanted it to be a picture book, but then it sort of unraveled to where it could have been a chapter book for a little older child. And I've thrown it out to my critique group, and everyone agreed that it should be a picture book. So I'm
Mhm.
scaling it back. Um, and the thing with picture books, like when we were kids, I don't know if you remember, picture books could be pretty long. I mean, you had a lot of words sometimes on the page. And maybe those were the ones the parents didn't want to read because,
Yeah.
it's like they just want to get the kid to bed, right?
Yep.
So now picture books are very few. They have very few words. They're generally like 500 to 800 words. It's not a lot of words, and there it is the challenge. And
Challenge
trying,
meaning it's a challenge to fit an entire story in 500 to 800 words.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah, yeah. And generally, the picture tells a lot of the story.
Mm-hmm.
And I will not be illustrating this future story. So there just is this perfect storm of just the right amount of words, just the right words, and then the pictures will, will be compatible to tell the whole story.
Now, I'm not a parent, but I am around young kids, and currently from the age of 1 up to 9 years old. Do you feel that fewer words is, how do I put this properly? Is it okay to have fewer words and more pictures for these kids, or is it better to have more words like when we were growing up and we were either read to and there were more words, so our vocabulary might have been bigger? Um, what's going to happen to kids of the future if it's all picture based?
I agree. I totally agree. And maybe that's because I'm old and I'm old school and I'm just, not keeping up with the times. But I do. I feel like, one of the critiques about one of the stories as it was being reviewed was that the words were too complex or too difficult. And, the author was saying, well, that's where the parents step in and help the kid look up the word and they learn new vocabulary. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. Like you said, so many words I'll use. And when I was in the classroom, kids would say, where do you come up with this stuff, Miss Smith? It's like, they're words we read and phrases. Mostly it's things like that,
Mm-hmm.
phrases that came up when I was little, and I just remember them and you use them, and it just makes for a more interesting, dialogue.
Well, I know you've probably heard this. Other folks have heard it, but many of us have heard knowledge is power.
Mm-hmm.
And words, part of knowledge. If you don't know a word, for me, perfect example. I get the knock knock at the door. Hopefully my camera doesn't fall. I answer. They say, "Hi, would you like to?" And I look at my big sign, and I lowered it to where I think kids would be. No soliciting.
Yeah. They don't know what that means.
They don't know what a solicitor soliciting means. I even asked one kid.
Mm-hmm.
The really cool thing is I have a 6-year-old, not mine, living with me. And I said, do you know what that means? And she goes, that means don't knock on the door. Nor, she said, nor, but don't knock on the door. And I said, that is right. And I said, why? And she said, because you don't want to buy something. Which,
good for her.
So her dad is one of those that actually really works with her on different words. And I think the reason that they went over that one is they probably heard me complain one day when somebody did it, and I ended up buying stuff. There are times high school kids or somebody comes around and you're like, all right,
I know.
But there are so many kids, yes, that don't know what certain words are, and that would be my fear in the future of 20 years from now. The vocabulary is just going to get this much smaller, and we as people in the Western culture, America, complain about people over in the Far East coming over, taking jobs, doing whatever. I mean, I'm getting off track, but it really has to do with, bottom line, reading.
Yeah,
you got to read, and you got to know these words. If you don't know the words, you're not going to understand. So
right.
I hope
Right.
you as an author will continue and write some big words.
Yeah, I will definitely continue to push that envelope on. I asked, it was another group I belonged to, and I asked one of the women, so where did this 500 words come from? Why why are the publishers and editors so strict on um, keeping the word count? And part of it was parent driven. And I think it's because they didn't want to have to read these books, these long books to their kids, which I find is a shame.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Really. And then the other was saying, the other reason that she said was that it makes kids be more, think about the story and have to intuit what is happening by looking at the pictures and, um, seeing what's going to happen or what they think is happening.
Wow, that's very interesting. I mean, there's too much psychology going into it for me. I remember as an adult, I would love to read more. It's just a habit that I haven't put into it being a habit because I'm doing so much other stuff. But I
Right.
love to lose myself in reading.
Yeah.
And I remember being young and I loved reading. I would go to the library. I would do the reading. You know, instead of running circles around in a track, it's how many books can you read in the month or whatever it was during the summers. How many books, or you had a goal that you had to reach on books read, and you got these little stars and stuff like that.
Mhm.
That I think to me is what really made me want to be an explorer, to
Mhm.
go out and see things rather than just be stuck right here. And I guess what I'm getting at is if all I'm doing is looking at pictures, some I might do this because there is no creative thought process because I don't know the words to put to that to make it
Mhm.
into a story, if that makes
Mhm.
any sense.
Mhm. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. And, it's like reading is, you just said it, like it made you want to explore, and reading brings the exploration and the travel and the excitement to find out more about these places that
Mhm.
you're reading about, and then to want to go see them. And then when you do travel, you put it all together, you know.
Yes, absolutely. Um, so as far as you and writing goes, and you are working on something that you're bringing back out again for younger kids, do
Mhm.
you do you do you want to, or is there a reason that you may not be thinking about older or adults, or is it because of
Um,
that child and you still wants to explore and you want to get that out?
I think for as long as I can really remember, I've wanted to write, or I've, been a writer, but whether, what can I say? I'm a writer,
Hmm.
but, I'm not a, best-selling author or anything like that. But I have written, like for online travel magazines. I've
Okay.
written for an online motorcycle magazine and a few other things like that. Um, and I enjoy that kind of writing, but I think I've really wanted to write children's books for a long time. And it's a
Okay.
lot harder than I realized, I think, when I was younger, and I thought, yeah, I'd like to write children's picture books. And then I get into it and I belong to this society of children's book writers and illustrators, and it's like, oh my gosh, there's so many rules, and it's a area that is very difficult to tap into. So I feel like I'm just starting to tap with this book, which is exciting.
That is, well, with all those rules, I probably fail as a writer of a children's book.
Yeah, it's an assignment that when I was teaching um, middle school and 10th grade in the classroom, I would have them write a children's story. So it kind of teaches them the plot development of, the arc of the story. And so then they have to do it, and then they have to read it to the younger. classes, and as part of the final of their assignment. And they think, oh, this is going to be easy. And then they get into it, and I give them feedback, and then they have to do revisions. They're like, oh my gosh, this is so hard. So they really got a taste of how hard it really is.
And you're absolutely right. It might be easy enough to start out the story by saying once upon a time on the beach. And then after you get there going, where do I go with this?
Right. Yeah. To do the full.
Yeah. You can always, that's why earlier I was asking, do you start at the end, the beginning, the middle, where? Because you can always say, oh, my story is going to be about, climbing a mountain. Okay. So where are you going to start, or what's the end? Right. Is the end that you reach the peak of the mountain, or is the story about climbing the mountain, but the story is really about the campsites along the way? What is it?
Right. And then usually in the story, there's some kind of underlying moral or message, or something you want the reader to get out of it, or something that makes it kind of touches them personally. So then there's that, you have your basic, okay, this is what I'm going to have the story be about, sort of. And then you start digging into all the little details, like, okay, what's my message here? What do I really want the takeaway to be? And that's where it gets a little tricky.
So are you going to continue in these groups that you're in as far as the collaborative efforts? And since this was just released, was it on the 12th of this month?
It was technically released on the 6th, and then we did our launch party on the 12th.
Okay. This might be already too soon to ask, but maybe the ladies have already talked about it, but are you going to do another collaborative effort where it's, I don't know if I like calling this a collaborative effort, because it's an individual, it's a collection. Are you planning on doing another type of collection of stories?
I think we might. I think we're it will be down the road a little as we see how this goes, and we learn a lot from it, which is great. And Bernice, who brought it to our attention and said, hey, what do you think about doing this collaborative work? She has published several books on her own. So she's kind of our lead. Like, we defer to her with all our publishing questions. But yes, I think we definitely have talked about the possibility of doing another collection in the future. So I hope we do, because we work really well together, and we're all very different. We have different ideas, and we bring different things to the table. So,
yeah, I'm sure that there are a wide breadth of stories within that collection. I mean, the 5, especially with you, it's kind of like the fall asleep, wake up, and you're in a different time, and you're way in the future. But before we close out today, is there anything that you might want to pass along to the young or the old as far as wanting to write, or maybe even reading? Is there, what do you need to do to fall back into love of reading or writing?
I think for the most part, to be a good writer, you need to be a strong reader. It just goes hand in hand. A lot of what you read, you learn good writing skills. So definitely, I meet a lot of young people who want to write, but they don't want to read. And I try to encourage them that the more they read, the better writers that they will become. But it's sometimes hard to convince young kids of that just yet, But and then as far as the reading is to find the genre or the author that just speaks to you, and dive in, and because you have to really love what you're reading to get hooked on it. And you were talking about so many things interfere with your reading time, and for me, I have the same thing. I love to read, but I can't read just in the middle of the day. I have too many things going on, but that's my before bed routine. And I almost can't sleep unless I've just a few pages. I just have to read a few pages, and then I can go to bed.
Do you, I'll say as an adult, do you recall the book that you read, or the author that you favored that got you re-energized or reinvigorated into reading? Is there an author or book that jumps out? I'm saying that because I know for me, I know one.
Like when I was young and first like snapped into getting
Well,
back into.
yeah, yeah. It's if if you were the type of person that ever really fell out of it for some reason, like I fell out and then I found my way back. I was always interested in reading. I was
Mhm.
always loved illustration. I always loved listening to stories, but I fell out of reading for one reason or another. And then I found the book and the author again. And that had to been when I was like 18 or something like that. I can't remember the age.
Um, you know, that's a really tough question. I would say though, and I know what you mean about falling out, just life takes over or
Mhm.
whatever, right?
Yeah.
Um, so I don't think I can pinpoint it on a specific author or title, but I would say historical fiction. I really enjoy historical fiction. And I think when I was in school, when I was in elementary school or high school, I was not interested in history. Like I
Right.
really was not a good history student. And then as I got older and I started reading like historical fictions, I got so interested in the historical part.
Mhm.
And so that just hooked me into reading and traveling because I didn't start traveling until I was, I think, in my 30s. So I think all of that happened kind of at the same time.
Wow.
So, yeah.
Interesting. Well, I've got a couple of questions of this or that type of question before we close it out.
Real quick, can you tell me your author, the
Oh,
book that you were saying?
yeah, yeah. Terry Brooks, The Sword of Shannara.
Oh,
So
I have not
the
read it.
first one, I got right into it with the characters and the books, and I actually would put on a set of headphones and
Mhm.
listen to I don't want to call it a subliminal thing, but just the atmosphere type of sounds.
Mm.
And for me, what was interesting is, oh, this is what's crazy. So it was a cassette tape that I found. So this tells you it was a little bit back, a cassette tape, and it was on how to quit smoking. I was never a smoker, but I thought, ooh, these are pretty cool sounds. And it just started out, listen
Oh,
to the
wow.
tone of my voice. Follow. I just throw it on. And then I would start reading, and I wouldn't become one of the characters, but I was there. And
Um,
then the coolest part about this, when I go back to read again, I put it back on, turn it on, boom, I was right back into that story.
oh, that's
And
great.
that took me through like 7 of the books. And then pretty soon, all right, that happened like 3 generations ago. And it's the same story, but it's a different name. And then I veered away and I went to a book called The Bats and
Mm.
just got a little bit more into that stuff. But yeah, Terry Brooks and the Sword of Shannara was what
Great.
caught my interest again.
Great. All right.
So that this or that quick round
Okay.
of question things. And I'm going to start by asking you Willy Wonka or Chitty Chitty Bang Bang?
Oh, Chitty Chitty Bang Bang.
Really? Okay,
Yes.
so do tell why.
Um, it's funny because that's not a story that you really hear about or see about that much these days. But
Hmm.
I love that flying car. I thought that flying car was the best. Yeah, I loved that. Oh, I'm gonna watch that movie. Yeah.
Yeah, it was my question for that for you was going to be between those two or Willy Wonka and Bedknobs and Broomsticks because they both had something that's flying. Do you
Oh,
remember
right.
Bedknobs and Broomsticks?
But I think I would pick for between those two. I'd probably pick Willy Wonka. I don't actually know Bed Knobs and Broomsticks as well. Yeah,
But Chitty Chitty Bang Bang. Yep.
Chitty Chitty Bang. Yeah, yeah. I love the music in it. Yeah,
Yes. Yep. It's all about storytelling too, and they both had great stories. And there's
yeah.
morals, and like I said, in book story writing, you want to try to put in a moral to the story, especially for the younger kids.
Hmm.
So,
Yeah.
um, all right. So, cheeseburger or pizza?
Pizza.
Okay. You absolutely know what you like and what you want, because I put out some of those questions and people are like, I don't know, I can't decide. I said, well, you have to. I like this and I like that. It's like, no,
You got to choose one.
just,
You know,
yeah,
that's funny that you say that though, because I'm a terrible decision maker.
you sure don't seem like it. I mean, it's like, you knew exactly. That's great. Um, well, is there anything that you want to throw out? I mean, let's once again remind everybody the collection, the name of the book, and your story name, of course, Rita Van Winkle, but and where they could get it.
Okay. Yeah, it's The Girl Who Lived in a Shoe and Other Torn Up Tales. And I'll hold it up one more time. Oh, I'm sorry. The sun has moved in this short amount of time. So The Girl Who Lived in a Shoe and Other Torn Up Tales, and can be found on Amazon, IndieBound, or go to your local bookstore and ask them to buy it. And if you can't go into your local bookstore, I've noticed if you go onto their websites, you can request it that way and they'll order it for you. And then, yes, my story is called Rita Van Winkle.
Excellent. And you, as the writer, the author of this, can they look it up by your name as well? Could they go under Loreley Smith?
You know, that's a really good question. I don't actually know the answer to that. But they can look it up under Bernice Seward, Seward.
Okay.
But
viewers and listeners, don't forget the name, Loreley Smith, author that's coming up and going to write great things for your children.
I hope so. Thank you so much, Chuck.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Loreley, for doing this today. Taking time out of your busy day. And if you have sun coming through, lucky you.
Yeah, it is. It's turning out. It's a really nice fall day here.
I'm jealous. Well, thanks again.
Thank you so much for inviting me. I really appreciate it.
Well, thank you. Thanks, Loreley.
All right. Take care.
Bye.
Bye.